Good morning, everybody. I want to welcome you here to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So, we're back with a series we're running for the month of August, my favorite 4 album runs. This would be day number 10, so it's August the 10th. And the band, of course, will be album number 20 or the 20th best run, if you want to put it. This one could have been higher for sure, but I had to put them as close to how I feel about them as I could. And this one just wasn't quite as good as I thought it was going to be. And I think part of the reason for that is that one of the albums of the 4, even though I've had it in my playlist and I've listened to it and I liked it, it just hasn't really resonated as strongly as it probably should with me. Although it's getting stronger all the time. Every time I listen to it, I hear stuff that I didn't originally hear. Of course, some people will think this is their best album of all time for this band, and are probably shocked that I'm not ranking it as one of my best albums of all time for them. But to me, it's a bit of an outlier. It doesn't really sound like the continuous flow of the band, so it's a little bit different. And it's also a double album, which in some ways hurts it with me because I tend to be 35 to 45 minutes is the length of my albums I like, and this one's a double album, so it's much longer than that. And of course, we're talking about Genesis. Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. It's got some absolute killer tracks on it, though. Whether it's one of my favorite Genesis albums or not, there's no denying that. It has the opening track, The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. This is the big kind of radio-friendly one that everybody knows. Even people who are not really Genesis fans know this song. Fly on the Windshield, it's okay. Broadway Melody, there's quite a few of these. Cuckoo Cocoon. They're all good stuff, but a lot of them not terribly memorable for me. In the Cage, of course, is another great, absolutely killer song. Also got a lot of radio play, so I'm not holding it high enough. Absolutely killer song as well. The Grand Play of the Lifeless Package, Back in New York City, Hairless Heart, Counting on Time. These are all, again, good, solid songs, but not terribly memorable. Then you get, again, to another great song, Carpet Crawlers, another song played quite a bit. This may be the best track on the album, in my opinion. I do love it quite a bit. Chamber of the 32 Doors, Lily White Lilith, The Waiting Room, Anywhere, Here Comes the Supernatural, and Themist, the Lamia, Silent Sorrows and Empty Boats. These are all great, good songs. Some of them not as good as others, but still strong. The Colony of Slippery Men, The Arrival of the Visit of Dr. Raven. Yeah, kind of quirky. It's a weird album, let's put it that way. Raven, The Light Lies Down on Broadway. This is one of my favorite non-radio known songs. It's not played a lot on the radio. I do like this a lot. Riding on the Scree, In the Rapids, another good one, and It, which ends off the album. This is strong. It's the last album, of course, with Peter Gabriel. Many people think this is Genesis's magnus opus, their great work, and that it's a legendary album comparable to Stairway to Heaven and Led Zeppelin 4 and those great albums of that arc, Sgt. Pepper's and all that. I'm not arguing with any of that. It just has not hit me that way at this point in time, but I do like it. So that's the first album. I spent quite a bit of time talking about that album because I think it's an outlier for me, but it's such a well-loved album by many. The next one is my favorite Genesis album, Trick of the Tail, the first one with Phil Collins on vocals. I love all the tracks on this album. This is my introduction to Genesis, so going back, I actually had 2 Genesis albums before I realized that Peter Gabriel had been the original singer. Yeah, so this came out in 76. I got this in probably 79 after I heard, actually I think it might have been 1980 after I had heard the Duke album. Some of the tracks on the Duke album made me go listen to this. I thought this was great. At that time it was Dance on the Volcano and Squonk, which were the 2 big ones for me, and then gradually all the other tracks have had time with me, and Tangled is probably, I think, the best track on the album. I like Robbery, Assault, and Battery. I know some people think that's kind of quirky, but I like it. Madman Moon is a fantastic, underrated song. Ripples, of course, is probably the most well-known track on here. Trick of the Tail, some people say that's a throw-on, but it's a good throw-on if it is. Los Endos is the only one that never had much traction with me, but it didn't hurt him. And of course, Entangled, and I'm missing one here. Yeah, Entangled, one of the great tracks too. So this is, to me, a top shelf Genesis album, the top shelf, like the very top. For a long time, it was a top 10 album for me. Still pushing to be in there, but a lot of stuff has come up and kind of moved it around a bit. It's basically, the biggest problem with it is it's burned out from just overplay. Next track, of course, is Wind and the Wuthering. No less of a great album. I love this deep and foreboding, barren cover here, indicating, and back here, almost a apocalyptic feel to it in some ways. Has 11th Earl of Mar was my favorite track initially. One for the Vine became a more dominant track for me much later, a deep cut. Your Special Way, it's a good track, more of a radio-friendly track. I don't dislike it, but it's not a song that I think much of. And then What Gorillaz, kind of similar to Los Endos. It's there, I don't mind it, but it's not one of my favorite tracks. All in the Mouse's Night, that has had periods of time at the top of the pecking order on this album. Blood on the Rooftops, the same thing. This is a deeply wonderful song that really is Genesis friendly in every way, stretch of imagination. Unquiet Slumbers for the Sleepers, In a Quiet Earth. These are both really good pieces here. And then it ends off with Afterglow, which is absolutely a killer track too. So this is a strong album. Just not quite as strong as Trick of the Tail, but strong nevertheless. And then the last album in this 4-album run begins the post-Steve Hackett era, which is then there were 3. Now this album took quite a bit of time before I really liked it. At first I didn't like it at all. I thought it was too simplistic, kind of spacey in a bad way, like kind of drifting album that didn't really have any direction to it in some ways, but I do like it now. It's grown on me. Some of the tracks are among my favorite Genesis tracks. Things like Deep in the Motherlode, probably my favorite track on this album, one of my favorite Genesis tracks altogether. Scenes from a Night's Dream, I really like that track a lot too. And of course, the big hit on here, Follow You, Follow Me, began the kind of migration to that radio-friendly stuff that you see on the next album, and gets worse from there at that point out. Unfortunately, this is kind of the end of that Genesis era, but still lots of good stuff here. Some people don't like Say It's Alright Joe, but I don't mind that track, it's good. Burning Rope I like, Ballad of the Big I like, Undertow is a great track as well. And this is just, it's a solid album. If I was giving it a number, it would be like a high 2, maybe a low 1. Definitely deserves to be in a run like this. It's been consistently strong with me throughout the years and grown better over time. So there you have it. That's my run for today. Genesis, Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, Trick of the Tail, Wind and the Wuthering, and lastly, And Then There Were 3. That's as good a run as you're going to find in a lot of discographies. Coming 20th today on day number 10, August the 10th, of my favorite 4-album runs. I hope that you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, please hit the like and subscribe. If you want to make comments about today's episode, you can, or anything you want to add. You want to talk about Genesis or the 4 albums, you can do that. All in the comment section below, of course. And don't forget the notification bell. And we'll be back on day 9 with number 19 of my favorite 4 albums runs. Take care. Goodbye.